So today I'm going to be covering Trinity Continuum Aberrant, which is all about superheroes. So let's get to it. Trinity Continuum Aberrant is a supplement to the Trinity Continuum core rules, which I already did a video of, which might be above me. But in any case, you play as superheroes, also known as Novas or Aberrants. The setting is set a few years into the future. I think when it was released, it was probably like about 10 years into the future, I think, but in 2028. And it uses the D10 system known as Storypath. It doesn't use Storypath Ultra, but maybe it will in the future. We can only hope, fingers crossed. I know nothing about what OnyxPath is planning for Aberrant, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt. The setting for Aberrant essentially starts when a bunch of people get superpowers in 2018. These are through an event called an eruption, which is when their power is full of this energy, which has been dubbed quantum energy, and they essentially get their superpowers. Now, you can take whatever theme you want or tone you want for running Aberrant. You can do a 4-color theme, which is your typical good versus evil, old classic comic book style stuff. Stuff you might see in the animated series of Superman or Batman, those classic types of shows. Then you have the cinematic, which is more in line with what you would see with something like, say, the superhero movies of the last decade or two. Your Iron Man, your Captain America, your Avengers, your Justice League, Batman, Superman, all those types of things. And then you have the deconstruction, which is the gritty truth behind the facade of being a superhero. This is essentially your Invincible or The Boys type storytelling, if you wish to do it. However, the one thing is pretty consistent with Trinity Continuum Aberrant, and that is that this is sort of the metropolis before it falls. This is the futuristic city of the future, or world of the future, where a lot of superheroes have solved the majority of Earth's problems, such as like healthcare, world hunger, cancer, those types of things. This is all leading to an event known as the Aberrant War, which is when baseline humans begin to fight the Aberrants, or the Novas who believe that they are better than humanity. I did do a metaplot type lore video, which I'll put a link to here, about why all this is happening, but essentially you can take this setting and do whatever you want with it. You don't need to focus on what has come before or what is coming after. Even Trinity Continuum itself doesn't really talk about all the escapades that people got into during the Adventure era or even the Aether era, where there were Martians attacking Earth. These are the types of things where you can take Aberrant and make it your own however you want. If you want to play like in a modern day setting, you can do that. Really all you're getting, or all you need from this, is the Aberrant template to play as superheroes, and you can do whatever you want with the setting afterwards. So what are Novas and Aberrants? Well, they're both the same thing technically. Novas are superhumans who can manipulate quantum energy to create like their powers. So invisibility and transformation, even mental ones, are all the manipulation of quantum energy. Aberrant is a slur that's used against a lot of Novas who have mutations or are particularly evil. It will often be said that the term Aberrant is going to be more common in the future when the setting gets further along. First up, though, there was this event called End Day, which was the first eruptions of Novas and occurred in March 23rd, 2018. This isn't the only day that Novas erupt, but it's the day it started. This is because, behind the scenes, setting secret, a guy named Divismal, who was a Nova before all this was going on, before this day, wanted to have more Novas exist in the world. So what he did was he created a device and set it off to basically make it so that humanity could push forward in evolution, or what he saw as evolution. This guy was known as Divismal. He is the leader of the Terrigen group, not Roop, who believes that Novas are separate from humanity and should not be bound by humanity's laws. There's also a thing called Dark Star Novas, which are Novas who can pass as baseline humans. However, there are also other types of superpowered individuals that aren't Novas that kind of get thrown into the Dark Star Nova category. These are your psychic type people, which were known as mesmerists, and your daredevils from Adventure, or the talents from core Trinity Continuum. While this is technically just 4 years of the future, there are a lot more advanced technologies because of Novas. There's things called core tech, which are Nova invented but can be mass-produced by baselines. These are things like the hyperfusion core device, which is basically like your replacement for all the fossil fuel energies and nuclear power. If a hyperfusion cell gets damaged, it can go inert and be turned back on without any fallout. Then there is EU fiber, which is fiber optic cabling, which can be used to create outfits, similar to this picture up here where someone has color changing clothes that they can just like flick a switch with. EU fiber is also used for something called the OpNet, which is basically, imagine if we had high load internet that was in the exabytes level instead of just the gigabyte level or whatever we currently have now. After that, you get Nova Tech, which is Nova created but cannot be mass produced by baselines. It's something that Novas have created that people can't really understand how it's made. There are various different levels of that. Usually they're more mundane than the quantum tech stuff. So the quantum tech stuff is when you get to a point where a Nova has created something that defies logic and physical reality. And that's when you get like stuff like your Iron Man type suits or things. These cannot be mass produced. They can only be produced by a Nova, so long as the Nova has like the ability to do so. Not every Nova can create every quantum tech device. Character creation, it's the same as Trinity Continuum's core rules. However, you use the Nova template instead of the talent template. Nova characters start with a quantum of 1, which is their power stat, and gets better. As it gets better, they can do more powerful things. Then all of their dice rolls now succeed on a 7 instead of an 8, just to show how much more powerful Nova characters are compared to everyone else. Now you also get 150 XP to spend on your character, which is insane. And it's very difficult, I find, for new players to figure out how to do this. Though I will say there are some archetypes in the back of the book. You have stuff like Mover, which is your speedster type character like the Flash or Quicksilver. You have fighters, geniuses, and a bunch of others. I'm not going to go too deeply into those. But what you should know is you can buy these special abilities that no other characters have access to unless they're a Nova. You have the Mega Attributes, which basically increase your scale for one of your attributes so that you're doing much more potent things with that ability. For instance, if you have a scale of 4 in one of your attributes, you can probably just throw someone across the room who's a baseline without even rolling your dice. There are also Mega Edges, which give you some passive superhuman abilities such as super speed, regeneration, and body modification. Then there are quantum powers, which are more active and customizable. Some of the superhuman abilities, such as energy blasts, can be customized to have different effects, such as stunning a target, blinding them, doing damage over time, etc. But then you have other powers, such as cloaking or teleporting, which don't utilize that customizability as much. I mentioned the quantum trait already, and also you get quantum points, which are the points that you use to use your powers. Additionally, you can use transformations linked to a quantum power to get that quantum power at half XP cost. This basically makes your character look more mutated so that they can get more powers and things of that nature at a little bit of a detriment. So the Nova template has a few changes from the talent template just to make them behave a bit differently. I already mentioned you roll successes on 7s instead of 8s. But they also have Eruption as their point of inspiration. This is the event that gave them their superpowers. And some people are like, oh, you can only have it be something related to quantum. Well, yes, it has to be related to quantum, but that event can be anything. Maybe you performed a dark ritual and that was your moment of inspiration because that's when you got access to quantum powers through supernatural element. Even though it's still science related, it does have that like supernatural link to it, such as Scarlet Witch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now there's another stat that we need to talk about, which is Flux. This is accumulated via using your powers usually through botches, maxing out your power, and rapid recovery. These essentially cause mutations and typically increase your transcendence, which is how far you're moving away from baseline humanity. As you get more of it from, say, increasing your quantum past rank 4, discounting your powers with transformations, or even reaching 10 flux, which gets reset back to 0 flux. This is your penalty for talking to people who are at a lower transcendence than you are. Usually baselines are 0. I think all baselines are actually 0, but then you have novas who aren't as far along, who look like humans, act like humans, and are close to humanity. I think once you get to a certain point with transcendence, you're basically Homelander from The Boys, where you look at humanity as ants. I know I haven't covered everything, but hopefully this gives you a sense of what novas are like. Here we have the 6 main factions of Aberrant. You have your Aeon Society, which was in Trinity Continuum Core. They're essentially a group that's known about novas and talents and other sort of superhuman beings for the better part of a century now, and have been studying them in secret. Now that novas are known about, they have helped create other societies such as Project Utopia and Team Tomorrow, as well as the Directive. Project Utopia and Team Tomorrow are a UN-backed group that are essentially using novas to help better society and the world in general. This is stuff like cleaning up climate change, as well as doing a lot of other things to help with like world hunger and things of that nature. Now, Team Tomorrow is sort of like the branded, these are the superheroes that are going to save the world, and these are the 6 or 7 best superheroes that we have, and they cover all the global issues. Whereas there are smaller cells of Team Tomorrow, like Team Tomorrow Chicago, or Team Tomorrow California, or Team Tomorrow Canada, and things like that. You don't have to like beholden to that as the only superhero groups that are out there. There are definitely other companies that are probably abusing novas for self-interests. Then you have the Terrigen, which are a variety of cells that believe in what Divis Mal said about novas being the next step in human evolution. There's a lot of talk about Terrigen characters still working with other factions just so that they can essentially like be like the rebel in the group, because they're like, well, I believe that we shouldn't be oppressed by people, but I still agree that we should be able to help humanity if necessary. Then you have the Directive, which is essentially the police of the novas. They're who you'd play if you wanted to do the boys type campaign where you're taking out superheroes who have gone bad. I kind of like them. I would really like to play that type of game. Then you have the Elites, which are sort of your mercenary novas who use their superpowers for other people for money, whereas something like Project Utopia or Team Tomorrow is government funded. And then lastly, you have the Daedalus League, which are dedicated to exploring outer space. This sort of sets up Trinity Continuum AI when I get to that, but keep a pin in that for another video. Just quickly, we have quantum powers here. Now, we have the example of quantum attack on my right here. Essentially, you have a restriction, what type of action is it, how much quantum points it costs to use, and the dice pool that you use, as well as the range and duration. Now, you can modify that with various power tags, and there are other abilities that are similar to this that might do different things. Other examples of quantum powers are your sort of invisibility, flight, growthing, shrinking, healing, morphing, all the lovely stuff that you can see. They're definitely the more active abilities, whereas if you're trying to do something like influence someone with your like poison ivy pheromones or something like that, that might be something along the lines of a mega attribute like mega presence or mega manipulation. How might you run Aberrant? Well, first, I think you and your players need to agree on the tone you want to do. For instance, I wanted to do a deconstruction campaign, but my players really wanted to do more of a Teen Titans type game. So we had to figure out which way we wanted to go. Additionally, I would say use your players' paths to determine their subplots. This is just general Trinity Continuum advice, but essentially your characters will have paths. Their like role path, their origin path, and their society path. And you can use that to sort of throw in NPCs and backstories for them, as well as sort of like your side plots. You should also be mindful of quantum flux building up. As your players use their powers, they will start to begin to mutate. However, it is recommended in the book that if your players just want to play superheroes and not have to deal about the fallout of using their powers, that's perfectly fine and a valid way to play, especially if you're doing something like the 4-color comic book style. I, for one, like the tone of powers coming at a cost, so I might like lean into that a little bit more, but I know some people, especially my players, didn't like it when I did that. Now, you can figure out who your threat will be very easily if you just watch some superhero movies or something like that, or some TV shows. The book itself doesn't really paint a picture of who you're going up against. There are example antagonists, such as like criminals and baselines who are hopped up on superhero drugs and steroids. For me in particular, I would choose probably like either an independent Nova who's like a supervillain, an evil corporation, baselines, aliens, etc. You could choose the Terrigen as the enemies, which is sort of delving a bit into the meta plot, as I would call it. But you don't need to, and the book doesn't really need you to, or doesn't point you in that direction. Unless you want to, you can. No one is saying not to make the Terrigen the villains. You can do that. You could also make them sort of your anti-heroes, kind of like your Raphaels from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or your Red Hood from Batman. As I said, I would really like to run Aberrant as a deconstruction where my players are trying to deal with the bad superheroes who are pretending to be good, but are actually using their powers to exploit baselines and other Novas. I definitely do something along the lines of the new team assembled goal, where the players have been handpicked by a group, maybe Aeon Society or Project Utopia, maybe even as a individual group that has just been contracted from the various societies. For instance, if someone is a Nova for Project Aeon, they might be less superpowered than other people, or less obvious as superpowered as other people. So I could just say, okay, you got a request in to join this new group. You can leave Aeon Society and sort of be like an independent contractor for them, or like on call with them just in case something happens. As far as the antagonists go, I really would try to do the type of thing of the players are first fighting the good guys, or the people who I perceive as the good guys that they might not perceive as good. So you might have Billy the Butcher or somebody like that who the players are going up against, and then find out, hey, he's actually doing good by taking out these other superheroes because they're not good people. And then pivot to the company that's actually like funding the superheroes who are bad, your kind of Vought type corporation, and have them be taken down. I'm using a lot of the boys' terminology, but Trinity Continuum Aberrant, in fact, Aberrant itself came out before the boys had even been created as a comic book. So there's something to be said about that, I think. If there's one Trinity Continuum Aberrant actual play that you have to check out, it's Utopia North. It really hits the deconstruction elements that I mentioned before, and it really hits home as to Nova's really being a propaganda piece for Aeon Society and other groups to essentially say, don't worry about superhumans, even though their superpowers would definitely kill anyone they save. Here's the secret. If you want people to play Trinity Continuum Aberrant, they have to hear about it. And they're not going to hear about it unless you press the like button down below. That gets it to more people. They can see it. They can be like, oh, maybe I'm interested in Trinity Continuum. I'll check it out. So please do that if you liked the video and you got this far. Thank you so much. I do have a Patreon that you can support where I'm currently doing an actual play of Mage the Awakening. Additionally, I do Trinity Continuum actual plays on OnyxPath from time to time. I haven't done Aberrant yet, but maybe I'll get to that at some point. Thank you so much for watching, and here's a video about the mechanics of Trinity Continuum. Shout out to our patrons for supporting the channel.